Welcome to the module on independent contracting. We're going to start off with a definition, then we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between independent contractors and employees, and then we're going to end with some legal considerations. So let's dive in. So what is an independent contractor? In the simplest way possible, an independent contractor is someone that does work for another person/company, but it's not an employee. Now, they have to take care of their own taxes, their own expenses, they have to keep a budget, and they have to think about all these other things that employees don't have to think about. Now, one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that independent contractors also call themselves self-employed, freelancer, entrepreneur, 1099 worker. Just keep in mind that you are free to call yourself however you want, but just know that name alone does not determine your independent contractor status. Now, there is a lot of misconception out there between what the difference between an independent contractor and an employee is. So let's start with number one, services. So if you're an independent contractor, your services are for the public and you can pretty much have multiple clients paying you. However, if you are an employee, you could only work for the employer, right? Now, number two, when you talk about income, if you're an independent contractor, you can send multiple invoices to your different clients that you have. And most of the time, you're going to get paid first. Now, if you're an employee, on the other hand, you are getting paid a salary by the same employer. Usually, you have to wait a week or you have to wait 2 weeks to get paid. Now, in terms of the hiring process, when you work as an independent contractor, what do you need? Well, you need an independent contractor agreement. You need a tax ID number, because with this tax ID number, you're going to fill out a W-9 form. And you also got to make sure that your business is set up with all your licenses, your permits, and your business structure. Now, if you're an employee, you got to make sure that you have a valid social security number and you have a valid work authorization, because when you get hired, you are required to fill out a 99, which pretty much verifies that you're eligible to work in the US. So those are the first three differences. The next ones, so number four is your working schedule. As an independent contractor, you're free to work whenever you want. You're free to work from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. if you want, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. However, as an employee, you're not able to do that from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. like a 9 to 5 or like a part-time job. Now, secondly, when you're thinking about working location, as an independent contractor, you're an independent business owner, right? So you are free to work in Hawaii. You are free to work at your parents' house. You're free to work at a coffee shop because, again, you control the location where you work. You are your own boss, as opposed to if you're an employee, you are working at the location of your employer, right? So again, talking about control, making sure you understand those two things. Now, lastly, the title and the role is extremely important because this is where the differences really stand out. If you're an independent contractor, your title or your role of the company is you're either the founder or you're the owner. You're the key decision maker in the business. As opposed to if you're an employee, you're part of a bigger team. You have a boss. You may have a manager. You might be the manager. Now, there are some good things and some bad things about independent contracting. So some good things about independent contracting include having the independence from a single company, right? You are able to get as many clients as you want because your work can be done with anybody as a business owner. Second and thirdly, your higher earning potential is correlated to the ability to charge more for your services, right? Now, what I mean by this, well, if you work as an employee, you will never hear your employer tell you that you're going to receive a 100% increase, a 1,000% increase. But if you have your own business, you can start off charging $400. Then you can raise that to $1,000 a month. Then you can raise that to $10,000, maybe even $100,000 a month. And as you grow, as you gain more experience, you're able to mitigate that because, again, you're the key decision maker, right? However, I do want to note that there are some bad things about being an independent contractor. The first thing that is bad about being an independent contractor is that even though you can get more clients, you need to develop new skills. You need to know how you're going to market your services. You need to know how are you going to sell. Now, secondly, there is no guaranteed payday. Even though, yes, you might have multiple people paying you, at any moment they can cut down the check. At any moment they can choose to not pay you. And there are different things that you can do to mitigate all these different risks. And the last thing that I talked about actually at the beginning of this module is maintaining your own space and equipment and thinking about the expenses, thinking about how much is this going to cost, thinking about your profit, thinking about all these other things that you don't have to think about as an employee. So all of these things are important when you're thinking about starting your independent contracting journey, right? Okay, so now that I went over what are some of the good things and some of the bad things about being an independent contractor, how do you get started? Well, your step one is going to be to find a market for your services, right? Is it social media? Is it virtual assistants? Is it website design? The ideas are unlimited, but the biggest piece of advice that I give you here is trying to find that borderline between these are the skills that I have and this is the problem in the market that I want to solve, and finding that in between of creating that service, right? You know, if you figure out that street vendors need help with their social media skills and you can assure them that you can help them get more sales through social media, maybe that's something that you can do contracting for, right? So ideas are unlimited here. It just takes understanding who you are, what your skills are, and how can you solve a problem in society. Now, your step two, once you sort of figure that out and you're starting to bring in income, you're starting to have clients, you want to start setting up your business structure. Is your business structure going to be a sole proprietorship? Is it going to be an LLC? Is it going to be a partnership? Is it a corporation? Now, we're not going to go over the different types of business structures in this module, but feel free to look at the course and navigate towards the section on Introduction to Business Structures to get a deeper understanding on that. Now, once you have your business structure set up, make sure that you also have your licenses and make sure that you have a valid tax ID number, because this is how you're going to pay your taxes at the end of the year. And again, we have a section on the course about this, so make sure you navigate to the right section. Now, your step three is to set up a separate business bank account, and this will help you keep your personal income and your business income separate. Now, your step four is to create an independent contractor agreement. This is where you're going to put how you're going to get paid, when are you going to get paid, what are the different deliverables that you have to finish to get paid, right? So these are just some of the things that you need to keep in mind. And we actually attached a free independent contractor template to this module, so make sure you check that out. Now, your step five is once you start getting clients, you're going to get paid. And again, depending on where you get paid, you know, some of these third-party platforms, they might take 20%, 30% of your payment. So just make sure that you put that on your contractor agreement. And then your step six is going to be to manage your taxes at the end of the year. Now, keep in mind that I did say at the end of the year, because until you finish a full year of business, that's when you actually start thinking about your taxes. You know, when I set up my business the first year, I didn't have to think about it the first 5-6 months. But then at the end of the year, around March, that's when I started filing my taxes. So this is actually something you shouldn't think about too much. But again, make sure that you do have a budget so you can pay your taxes at the end of the year. Now, if you remember at the beginning of this lesson, I mentioned that name alone does not determine your independent contractor status. So what actually determines your status? Well, there's a few tests. The first one is the ABC test led by the Department of Labor. The second one is the common law test by the IRS. And the third one is the economy's reality and control test by the Department of Labor and various jurisdictions. And these are the three tests that are actually done to determine the status of a worker, whether they are an employee or an independent contractor. So we're actually going to dive deeper into every single one of these, and we're going to provide some examples. So what is the ABC test? Well, the ABC test is used in some of the US states for determining the employment status of a worker. Now, the worker is considered an independent contractor if and only if they are free from control, they are free from the direction in the performance of their work is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business, and they are customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business. Now, this is a lot of information to consume, so let's go ahead and do an example. Now, for this example, we talk about a freelance writer. So let me read this. A freelance writer writes articles for a magazine. She sets her own schedule, submits the articles online, and is paid per article. The magazine is in the business of publishing, not writing. The writer also writes for other magazines and has her own website and business cards. Now, this may indicate an independent contractor relationship. Now, what are some of the things that stand out? The fact that she has her own schedule, the fact that she is paid per article, the fact that the business that is hiring her is in the publishing industry, not the writing industry, also helps. And the fact that she advertises her services to the public because she has her own website and her own business cards, right? So again, going back to the ABC test, this person is free from control. This person is free from the direction of their work. And also the work is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. Again, publishing, not in writing. So that's an example of the independent contractor relationship. Now, for the common law test, this is a test that looks at 3 categories: behavior control. This is if the company controls what work is accomplished and directs how it is done. Financial control, this is where the business directs or controls the financial and business aspects and the type of relationship. And this is if the worker and the business believe they're creating an employer-employee relationship. So again, a lot of information. Okay, so for behavior control, a graphic designer is hired by a company to design a logo. The company provides the designer with detailed instructions on what the logo should look like, when the work should be done, and what software should be used. This may indicate an employee relationship. Now, why does this indicate an employee relationship? A few reasons. Well, for one, there's detailed instructions. This is the employer directing how the work is going to get done, when the work should be done, and then what software should be used. Now, again, a counterexample of this is if the designer chose when they would have the project ready, what software they would use, but because in this example, the employer is controlling every single variable, then that makes it difficult for this to be considered an independent contractor relationship. Now, for financial control, a plumber uses his own tools and equipment, sets his own prices, and has multiple clients. He also advertises his services and faces a risk of loss if the business does not do well. This may indicate an independent contractor relationship. Now, again, what stands out? Well, the fact that the plumber has his own tools and equipment, okay? The fact that the plumber sets his own prices, has multiple clients, and advertises his own services shows that this person has control over their business, has control of their pricing, has control of how much they're going to get paid through this. So this is a clear example of an independent contractor relationship. And then the last one, a software developer works for a tech company and receives benefits like health insurance and paid vacation. She works indefinitely for the company and her work is a key aspect of the business. This may indicate an employee relationship. What are some things that stand out on why it is an employee relationship? Well, for one, they receive benefits like health insurance and a paid vacation. If you're an independent contractor, you're a business owner, you're the one providing that towards your employees, not the other way around, right? An independent contractor will never get these types of benefits. She is working indefinitely for the company. That is already a red flag, right? As independent contractors usually have a start date and an end date. And then the last one, her work is a key aspect of the business. Like I mentioned, independent contractors work on their own projects. They're usually part of a bigger project, but the whole scope of the work is not dependent on them. So again, this indicates an employee relationship. Now, the last test that is actually done is called the economies, realities, and control test. And this looks at the degree of control the employer has over the worker, including when and where the work is done, who provides the tools and the equipment, and whether the work can be done by someone else. So let's go ahead and look at an example. So a company hires a cleaner to clean their office every Friday. The company provides the cleaning supplies and equipment and requires the cleaner to follow a specific list of tasks. The cleaner cannot send someone else to do the work. This may indicate an employee relationship. Now, again, what stands out to you? Well, the fact that the company is providing the supplies and equipment, the company requires the cleaner to follow a specific list of tasks, and this is the biggest indicator of them all, that the cleaner cannot send someone else to do the work. Again, a counterexample is maybe it's a cleaning company. That cleaning company is getting hired by this company to provide the cleaning services, and that company can send any worker that they want. Again, signifying control. That would be an example of independent contracting. But yeah, just keep this in mind. Keep these examples in mind when you're thinking about whether or not the work that you're conducting fits the description of independent contracting. Now, just a quick note, the determination can be a little bit complex and dependent on a variety of factors, such as your state, such as the type of work that you do, business structures, and more. So please make sure that you speak to a professional when doing this type of work. Now, that concludes the presentation on independent contracting. However, you do have a bonus, so feel free to download the Independent Contractor Ultimate Starter Checklist, where we put a list of things that you might need to get started, but also download an independent contractor agreement template that we have. It has notes, it has a step-by-step, it has 12 sections. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next lesson.